ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जना। So we begin a new chapter today, Sri Ram Krishna with devotees at Kali temple in Dakshineshwar. The first chapter describes the Falaharani Kali Puja day. Falaharani Kali, Kali has various aspects, and one of the aspects is one who takes away the bad karma phala. That is what we expect. We don't want the good ones, but Falaharini Kali Puja. That is the day when Shrima, on the 14th day of the dark fortnight in the month of Jyeshtha. So people fast on this 14th day of Savitri. It is also known as the day of Savitri. And the Falaharani Puja will be celebrated at night on the last day of the dark fortnight, Amavasya. Sri Ramakrishna is sitting in the shrine of the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. The devotees are coming to see him. It is Monday, 4th June 1883. M had visited Sri Ramakrishna last Sunday, and the Katyayani Puja, that is another puja, Falaharani Puja, the Divine Mother is worshipped as the consumer of the karmas of the devotee. She consumes everything. The karmas means then we should be prepared to give up the good karma also. We can't say selectively that you take away my bad karma and let me enjoy the fruits of the good karma. So Falaharani Kali Puja means that. And Katyayani means goddess Durga. So that is the third, after Falaharani, the Katyayani Puja was held the previous night. Thakur, full of emotion, is singing and standing in front of the mother in the Nak Mandir, and he says, "O mother, you are the Katyayani of Braja." Braja is where Sri Krishna sported. "You are heaven, you are the earth, and you are the nether world. Hari, Brahma, the 12 Gopalas, the 12 Gopals, 10 great sciences, and 10 avatars have all originated out of you." So Shakti is, as Sri Krishna used to always say, avatar is always of the Shakti, never of the Vishnu. Without the help of Shakti, there cannot be any incarnation. So that's why that prayer Thakur is praying, "This time you shall have to take me across by any means." So Sri Krishna used to believe that worshipping God as the mother is the most powerful form of worship. And on this Falaharani Kali Puja day, he is in a very high ecstasy, and he sings and talks to the mother as if she is alive. He is fully intoxicated with divine love. Now he goes to his room and sits down on his cot. The mother was worshipped until midnight. Till midnight, the worship goes on, unlike Kali Puja, of course, which lasts till morning. But here, Falaharani Kali Puja is normally, it gets over by midnight. The following Monday morning, Balram and other devotees have arrived. Trailokya and other proprietors of the garden have come with their families for the Falaharani Puja. Trailokanath Sanyali was one of the Brahmo Samaj members who was also a devotee of Thakur. It is 9 o'clock. Thakur sits on the round veranda overlooking the Ganges with a smile on his face. Now this round veranda is the western veranda, famously known as the western veranda. So when Naren came for the first time, he entered not through the northern and the other verandas, but he came through this western veranda, as if to show that he represented the best of Western education, being educated in a modern Western university. He, as it were, was a representative of the Western thought, and that's why Leela Prasang Swami Shardanji says he comes through the western door. For the first time when he came from Ganga, and then there is a semicircular veranda, and Thakur was sitting there, and he can look at the Ganga from that veranda. From the other veranda, you can see the Nahabat, whereas from this veranda, he can look at the Ganga flowing in front of him. Of course, there is a garden in between. Playfully, he places Rakhal's head on his lap. Rakhal is lying down. For some days, so Rakhal was like a child. He was in a childish mood in those days. And he used to, Thakur has regarded him as Gopala, baby Krishna. So he is lying down as if Krishna himself is lying down. The Gopala, the small baby Krishna. So Rakhal is also in a strangely when Thakur meditated on certain deities. Say, for example, if you meditated on Gopala, the devotees who were present there saw a strange mood of Gopala coming in themselves. So naturally, the lying down of Rakhal as the baby Krishna, suddenly he lies down as if he is a small baby, and Thakur is also placing his head on his lap. I mean, he is just sleeping on Thakur's lap. It is maybe strange. He was a very grown-up boy. Rakhal was a grown-up young man. But in that strange mood, when Sri Ramakrishna was thinking of Sri Krishna as Gopala, Sri Krishna had various forms. Gopala is one of the forms. So those who love to see through their Vatsalya Bhava, Sri Krishna as a small Gopala, they don't like the aspects of Sri Krishna where he is the Mahabharata friend of Arjuna. That Krishna they don't like. For example, the Vrindavan people, they like Krishna when he was a 13 or 14-year-old boy. Whereas here, Gopala is the Ishta, or Gopala is what Yashoda looked upon Sri Krishna as. So that is a Vatsalya Bhava, where the mother looks upon the Ishta as the child. So Trailoka is going to the temple for Mother Kali's darshan. On his way, he passes Thakur's room, and attendants are holding an umbrella accompanying him. Sri Ramakrishna exclaims, "Oh Rakhal, get up." So he's asking Rakhal, who was nicely sleeping there, and asking him to get up. So Sri Ramakrishna sits up and Trailokya bows down to him. Sri Ramakrishna says, "Brother, was there no yatra?" Jatra means a musical performance. It's a drama where songs are sung. So Trailokya says, no, it could not be arranged. Sri Ramakrishna then says, "Well, let it pass this time, but you must see to it that it is not forgotten in the future. One must continue to observe the injunctions." So this was a tradition that during such auspicious occasions, a jatra would be held. And that way, lot of spiritual truths would be communicated to the devotees who, or maybe to visitors, even casual visitors, they would be attracted by this wonderful drama and take away certain values or certain wonderful ideas which they depicted. Shortly afterwards, Ram Chatterjee, the priest of the Vishnu temple, arrives. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, "Ram, I said to Trailokya, the yatra was not performed. You see to it that it is not forgotten in the future. Should I have said that?" Now, Sri Ramakrishna has told him not to do certain things, but he was so humble that he thought perhaps I have exceeded my limit, and told him what to do, what not to do. He never wanted to interfere. Said, "Should I have said that?" Ram Chatterjee says, "Sir, what is wrong with it? You are right, one must follow the traditions." So he is consoling, and like a child, Thakur also is very happy that he has not given a piece of unwanted advice to Trailokya, because they were all supposedly big people, and Sri Ramakrishna did not assume the air of superiority, and he was so humble, like a child. He was in that mood actually. So he says, "Have I done a mistake by scolding him or asking him to do certain things which he has not done?" So Sri Ramakrishna then says to Balram, "Please eat here today." Before the meal, Thakur tells the devotees a number of things about his spiritual state. Rakhal, Balram, M, Ramlal, and one or two other devotees are present. Then Sri Ramakrishna now is angry with Hajra, that is the heading, seeing God in man. Sri Ramakrishna says, Hajra used to very often instruct me, why do you think so much about these young men? I mean, meaning Narendra and all who used to come. So he used to criticize Sri Ramakrishna. Hajra thought he was wiser than Sri Ramakrishna. In fact, he told Naren that many things which did not I mean many things about Sri Ramakrishna, which Sri Ramakrishna of course laughingly accepted everything because he knew the ignorance of Hajra. So then Hajra one day, but he used to take sometimes his words seriously and then go to a mother like a child. And when Hajra said, why are you getting attached to these young people? So he says, why do you think so much about these young men? You should be bothered about your sadhana. So one day in a carriage on the way to Balram's house, I was very worried about it. Now, like a child, when somebody says something, Sri Ramakrishna would go to his mother and ask, am I doing the right thing? Then I said to the mother, Mother, Hajra asks, why I think so much of Narendra and the other young men. He asks why I spend so much time worrying about them instead of meditating. While I was saying this, she immediately showed me that she had indeed become a human being. One can clearly see her in a very pure mind. Having seen her form, when I came down a little from Samadhi, I was very angry with Hajra. I said to myself, that rascal has defiled my mind. Then I said, well, after all, he was not to be blamed. How could he know? He is ignorant. So immediately he forgave Hajra, though he was very much upset that I took his words seriously. So now he's talking of his previous experiences, the different visions he was shown when all the direct disciples, especially Narendra, came to him. He said, I see the young men as the very manifestations of Narayana. When I met Narendra for the first time, I noticed that he did not have body consciousness. I just touched his chest with my hand and he lost all external consciousness. When he returned to his normal state, he exclaimed, I say, what did you do to me? I still have my father and mother. But this happened in Jadu Malik's house, which was just next to Dakshineshwar temple. Jadu Malik used to live there in Dakshineshwar. Gradually, I felt more and more longing to see him. I became restless for him. Then I asked Bholanath. Bholanath was, I think, a clerk in the Kali temple. Later, he became a treasurer. That's the footnote there. So he asked Bholanath, I say, brother, what is the matter with me? There is this boy, Kayastha by caste, named Narendra. Why do I feel such attraction for him? Normally, in those days, the caste restrictions were so, people used to believe in all these things. And normally, you would not be seen mixing with people of the other caste. So that was one of the traditions of those days, good or bad, whatever it was there in those days. So he was saying, he's a Kayastha by caste. Still, I am very much attracted by, why do I feel such an attraction for him? Then Bholanath told him, the Mahabharata explains it. So Bholanath, though he was a treasurer, perhaps he had read a lot of scriptures. So he says Mahabharata clearly says why these things happen. When the mind of a person who goes into Samadhi comes down, he wants to live and associate with Sattvic people. He feels contented only when he meets such people. When I heard this, I was at peace with myself. At times, I sat down and wept to see Narendra. So his earlier story, Sri Ramakrishna intoxicated in divine mood and his vision of God's form. Then he's talking about the state which he had before he met Narendra. Sri Ramakrishna says, what a state I was in. When I had this state, I didn't know how days and nights passed by. Everybody thought that I had gone mad. So they married me off. I was in a state of divine madness. First, I was worried for my wife. Then I thought, well, she can live, eat and drink normally as I do. I went to my father-in-law's house where a big kirtan was being performed. Nafar, that is Dagambar Banerjee's father, and others attended it. There was a lot of devotional music. This was in Jairambati. Father-in-law means Holy Mother Srima Sharda Devi's father. So he's talking about those days when he was just married off, and uh, he felt worried about the future at that time. At times I felt worried about the future. Then I said to the mother, Mother, if the Zamindar of the village talks to me and shows me his respect, I will know that all my spiritual realizations are true. So Sri Ramakrishna had this peculiar habit. Whenever any doubt came to his mind, whether the visions I have are true, whether the experiences I have are true, so to confirm it, he would pray to the mother to show some evidence of whether his spiritual realizations were true. And miraculously, you'll see, mother did whatever was there in his mind. And as soon as he said, Mother, if this landlord, normally no landlord will talk to ordinary people. Sri Ramakrishna was family, and also Jairambati, Holy Mother's family, they belong to a very humble family. You would not expect the landlord of the zamindars of that village to come and talk to him. But he did come on his own. And he because Sri Ramakrishna had asked the mother, if he comes to me and shows me his respect, then I'll realize that there is something within me. See the humility of Sri Ramakrishna, that he himself is such a wonderful, had so many visions, but he still felt that without mother's grace, or if unless mother tells me that what he has experienced is true, I will not accept it. Then after this, he was convinced because the prayer was immediately answered. Now, his earlier story, now he is going on telling the earlier experiences of his sadhana. Worship of Sundari and Kumari. So there is this Sundari Puja, Kumari Puja, and witnessing Ram Leela and balloon in the Maidan. Balloon was a new thing the British government had introduced. People could, rich people of course would be able to sit in the balloon and it would go up. The balloon was a novelty in those days. In the Maidan, the big Maidan opposite the very big Parliament House which was there. Feeding of cowherd boys in Shihor with Mathur and his Jan Bazar house. So these are the topics. Then he says, what a state I passed through. A very ordinary thing would at once fill me with inspiration. All the things around him, when the divine is awakened within, even the small things fill one with inspiration. She was a 14-year-old girl. I saw her as the manifestation of Mother herself. I offered her a rupee and bowed down to her. I mean, he saw a 14-year-old girl and he felt that the Divine Mother was working, manifesting through her. And he was in that strange mood, and he in fact offered, as we offered to deity, a rupee and bowed down to her. Then I went to see Ram Leela. Ram Leela is normally performed on the Dasera day. I saw the real, because it was on that Dasera day, on a Dasera day, that Ravana was killed by Rama. I saw the real Sita, Rama, Lakshmana and Vibhishana before me. Though they were actors, he just felt as if they are the real incarnations, Rama, Lakshmana, Sita and Vibhishana. So I worshipped all the actors who were playing these parts. He went through this stage, actually went through this stage. Then he says, I invited the Kumaris and worshipped them. The small girls, normally between the age of 4 between the age of 6 and 8, they are known as Kumaris. So he worshipped them. I saw them as Mother herself. One day, I saw a girl in blue robe standing under a bakul tree. The other two incidents, that is seeing her as a Sundari or a Kumari, was different. But here, even after seeing a prostitute, he says, one day I saw a girl in blue robe standing under a bakul tree. She was a prostitute, but my mind at once became filled with the ideas of Sita. Instead of the girl, I saw Sita herself coming to Rama after being freed from Lanka. For a long time, I was unconscious in the state of Samadhi. So these are the different visions Sri Ramakrishna had. And one day he saw a European boy leaning against a tree with his body bent in three places. So he had gone to the Fort Maidan. A big crowd had gathered to watch a balloon being released, and a European boy was also leaning against a tree, and that reminded him of Krishna. Krishna is also known as Bake Bihari, mean one who is bent. He never stood straight. Whenever he was playing a flute, you will see the different paintings where Krishna is reclining against a tree, leaning against a tree with the body bent in several places, at least three places. So that is why he is also known as Bake Bihari. Bake means one who is bent and different. He could not, as a young Sri Krishna of Vrindavan, he used to always play the flute in this manner. So seeing this boy who was resting against a tree and watching the balloon, he immediately had the consciousness of Sri Krishna and says, I had samadhi. In Shihor, that is Hriday's birthplace, I served snacks and drinks to cowherd boys as though they were real cowards of Braja. Then I ate them too. Just as Sri Krishna used to feed his fellow cowherd boys, so also he felt like doing that. I often lost consciousness, so Mathur Babu kept me with him in his Jan Bazar house for a number of days. When he was undergoing this state, that people, Hriday and all, were very busy with puja, so nobody could look after him. Ma Sharda Devi had not yet come. Mathur Babu took the entire responsibility. So he knew that if he goes into these different states, he may just fall down and hurt himself. So he brought him and asked him to stay in his Jan Bazar house. And there he felt as though I had truly become a maid of the mother of the universe. The women of the household were as comfortable and free with me as with a small boy or a girl. Now, this is something worth noting, because normally in those days, women would not come out and meet strange men without being in parda. Maybe that was the effect of the Islamic rule. So there was this parda system, though it was not like a burqa, but parda was something which you were expected to cover your head with, your face with, before you came and met. But when Sri Ram Krishna came, he was a grown-up person, but still he was in that divine mood, and even the women felt very comfortable, as though they are mixing, as though they felt that as though Sri Ram Krishna was a small boy or a girl. So even now, Sri Ram Krishna says, my mind is transported at the thought of the slightest things. Any slight suggestion of any divine Leela, a close resemblance, for example, this Bake Bihari vision came immediately when he saw even a European boy leaning against a tree. So he says, I could not keep still. These divine visions and divine ecstasy happened very spontaneously. Before, I could not keep myself still when I saw Rakhal mumble while performing japa. I would immediately be transported by the thought of the Lord. It is said that Swami Brahmananda, who was also known as Rakhal in his pre-monastic days, he always had a distinct lip movement, which many people noticed. And it was so spontaneous that he did not have to do any effort. By the grace of Thakur, the japa would be going on continuously. And he used to mumble something. So while performing japa, he would immediately be transported by the thought of the Lord. So that is how he was in that divine state for quite some time. Sri Ram Krishna narrates many other things about his Prakriti Bhava, the feminine state. So whenever he thought of Devi, whenever he was meditating, he used to get the feeling that he is Prakriti. Whenever he thought of Shiva, he would believe that he would get the characteristics of Purusha. So when he was in a Prakriti Bhava, he says, I told a male musician about the tips of female musicians. He could imitate the exact intonations. He said, how well do you do it? Where did you learn it? So when male musicians come, he used to impersonate and sing in a female voice also. Thakur then begins to mimic a female musician, giving tips on how she sings. None of the devotees could keep from laughing. So he kept them in humor, he kept them full, he was so witty, and this wonderful ability to be transported by the thought of the Lord in any form, in the form of Gopala as a small child, or as Krishna of Radha, and all the different moods and bhavas, he could effortlessly move from one feeling to another feeling, and used to mimic male as well as female. For him, everything was beyond gender. There was no gender consciousness in him. That's why women felt so comfortable. They felt that he's just a young boy or girl. If he's a if a woman came to him, they used to feel that she's a small girl. Sri Ramakrishna appeared to them to have the characteristics of Shakti or Prakriti. And if male people came, they would feel as comfortable with him as they would with a small child. So, and he used to do a wonderful mimicry of these different characters, whether male or female. He was a very, very good mimic. He could even sometimes used to make people, especially the younger generation, roar with laughter when he mimicked these actresses and different dramas, how women walk and how women do. So nothing was, because he was a Sarvagna. Avatars are supposed to be Sarvagna in the sense that they can at once identify themselves with the entire Prakriti. So nothing is hidden from them, nothing is strange for them. They don't consider themselves either as a particular form, and then don't identify with any particular form. They are one with the whole universe. So that is the state in which he lived. That is the state in which he spoke to all the people now and then, especially in the early part of his sadhana. And people were wonderstruck to see the different divine moods in Sri Ramakrishna. Now, Thakur is with Manilal, an ocean of Manilal Malik, an old Brahmo devotee, and he is an ocean of motiveless grace. That is the topic now. Sri Ramakrishna is resting a while after eating. He is not sleeping, but is a bit drowsy. Manilal Malik, an old Brahmo devotee, enters and bows down to Thakur. He takes a seat. Thakur remains lying on his bed. Manilal talks to him casually. Thakur is half asleep, half awake. He responds to Manilal. Manilal says, Shivnath is all praise for Nitya Gopal. He says Nitya Gopal is in a very nice spiritual state. Thakur is still lying on the bed, his eyes a bit drowsy. He asks, what does he say about Hajra? Thakur now sits up and talks to Manilal about Bhavanath's bhakti. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, oh, see, what a nice spiritual state he is in. His eyes fill with tears when he sings. At the sight of Harish, he goes into ecstasy. He says that Harish is truly a very good person. You see, Harish leaves his own house and stays here at Dakshineshwar at times. Then Sri Ramakrishna asks M, why does he have so much bhakti? Why do Bhavanath and others get so inspired with God? M remains silent. Because he doesn't know. Sri Ramakrishna was a better judge of men and the devotees. And he had stopped giving comments, because when people comment about each other, about different devotees, about their devotion, they are often mistaken because they can't see the inside. They are not able to gauge a person, judge a person. Whereas Sri Ramakrishna knew everything, and just as if to test him, he is asking him, why do they get inspired with God? And he knew that it is better not to speak, because he tried once or twice in the past, and he was, he knew how wrong he was. So he thought it better not to judge anybody or anything and just allow his Guru Sri Ramakrishna to do everything. Then Sri Ramakrishna himself answers. He asks this question, seeing M silent. He says, you know how it is. All men look alike on the outside, but some of them have sweetened milk within. Means they are very soft and kind within. Outside they may look little rough. This sweet is known as a ring-shaped sweetmeat with some filling in it. So it is something like puli, the puli they call it. The puli may have lentils for its filling or sweetened milk. So puli perhaps was made with lentils, or sometimes they put sweetened milk, then it becomes sweet. But from outside, both look alike. A filling of sweetened milk is the desire to know the Lord and to have ecstatic love for Him. So externally, though all human beings appear to be the same, but they are different. Their internal states can be different. Now Thakur grants fearlessness to the devotees. How does he do it? Salvation and vision of one's own real self by Guru's grace. Thakur grants fearlessness. That is the new heading. So this is the famous story which Swamiji told, and we think it is Swamiji's story, but it is, he heard it from Sri Ramakrishna. It is about that lion or the tiger and the flock of goats. Actually, when Swamiji said, he spoke about the lion, but here, because the lion, sher, the word sher in Hindi can mean lion or can mean tiger, because it is in Bengal where lions are rare. If you go to the western part of India, lions are there. I think Swami Vivekananda, when he said lion, he that is what sometimes tigers are also known as. That's why we find Mother Durga sometimes sitting on the lion and sometimes on the tiger. In Gujarat and all, you'll find the opposite. Whereas in Bengal, she's sitting on a lion. As Ambika, she's sitting on a tiger. But anyway, whether it is a tiger or a lion, it is a royal animal. So something that they will be never gain jnana and bhakti, and they are always bound. But when Guru's grace descends on someone, he does not have to fear. So he is giving an example now. A tigress came into a flock of goats. When it sprang on its prey, it gave birth to a cub. The tigress died, but the cub grew up in the flock of goats. So when it was bred and when it grew up, it behaved like a goat. The goats ate grass and so did the cub. They bleated, so the cub also began to bleat. It did not roar. The cub grew to become a tiger. One day another tiger happened to come to the flock of goats. It was amazed to see a fellow tiger eating grass. What has happened to this? It ran towards it, grabbed it, and the latter began to bleat. Instead of roaring, the grown-up tiger, now the tiger had grown up, but because it was brought up with the cubs, so the wild tiger dragged it to a pond and said, "Look at your face in this water. You are exactly like me. Here is some meat, eat it." Saying so, it forced the meat into the mouth of the grass-eating tiger. It first refused to take it and began to bleat, saying, "I am weak," and all those things. But once it tasted blood, it began to eat the meat. The wild tiger said, "Have you understood now? You are just like me. Now accompany me to the forest." So if the grace of the Guru dawns, there is no fear. The Guru, by the grace of the Guru, Sri Ramakrishna says, you understand who you are and what your real nature is. If you practice a little spiritual disciplines, the Guru tells you everything. Do this now and do that later. In time, one begins to understand what is real and what is unreal. The Lord is the reality and the world is illusory. So Sri Ramakrishna now says, even in the pretense of spiritual practice, a Jivan Mukta, after he becomes a Jivan Mukta, he may still live in the household. So Sri Ramakrishna is giving another example. In the first case, he was giving the example. In the first case, he was giving an example where he was trying to show that even though the tiger's cub was in the company of goats, he still, by the grace of the Guru, that another tiger came who belonged who told him that you belong to the tiger group. You should not be bleating and you should not exhibit your weakness like this. So also he is giving another example. Even pretense of spiritual practice, even if we start and as an imitation, it may be important. We may not be very sincere in our spiritual practice, but we have to make a beginning sometime or the other. He says one night a fisherman was casting his net in a garden pond and stealing fish. In parts of Bengal, it is very common for people, for thieves to come and steal fish from the ponds of different houses, because during the daytime they can't fish. Nobody will allow people, strange people, to come and fish in their ponds. So if they have to do it, they have to do it at night. So when the owner of the garden came to know of it, he knew that there's somebody trying to steal fish. So from his pond. So the owner of that garden sent all his men and said, surround the whole garden and see that the thief does not escape. That's what they do. They started searching for him with torches, etc. In the meantime, the fisherman had smeared his body with some ash and sat under a tree like a sadhu. The men looked for the fisherman everywhere, but could not find him. They only saw a sadhu with ash smeared on his body sitting under a tree meditating. So the fisherman, or the person, the thief who had come, the fisherman who was a thief and had come, he decided to just smear his body with some ash. That is how holy men normally lived in India in those days. And he began to imitate a holy man and immediately dropped all these things and came and sat under a tree and started meditating like a sadhu. The men looked for the fisherman everywhere, but could not find him. They only saw a sadhu with ash smeared on his body, sitting under a tree meditating. The next day, the whole neighborhood was agog with the news that a sadhu of high spiritual attainment had arrived in the garden. Many people went to the sadhu and offered him flowers, fruits, sandesh and sweetmeats to show their respect. They offered him. Now the whole story has changed here. A person who had come to rob, though he tried to imitate, he got a lot of respect. People came, though he was an imitation sadhu. The fisherman said to himself, what a wonder. I am not a real sadhu. I've just done this to escape from being to prevent from getting beaten by these people. Yet these people have so much devotion for me. And if I really become a genuine sadhu, then assuredly I would realize God, not only get the respect and other things, but I would definitely realize God. There is no doubt about it. So Sri Ramakrishna, telling this story, says, even the pretense of spiritual practice brought an awakening. So that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to tell, whatever be the reason, just take the name of the Lord, even if it is in fun. If you start taking the name of the Lord, by His grace, somehow you will come on the right track. Had it been true sadhana, how much more awakening he would acquire. Even the pretense, just to pretend that he is a sadhu, he got so much of respect. He thought that I was a vagabond, I was robbing and had nobody liked me. But the moment I just acted, not even followed the austerities that sadhus do, but even the mere imitation gave rise to the feeling that even the imitation which he did gave so much respect he got from the people. So he understood that if I do my spiritual practices sincerely, if imitation can give me so much of glory and so much of name, fame and other things, Then if I do it sincerely, I'll surely realize the God. The Lord indeed is the reality and the world is transitory. This he came to know by an incident when he was being caught, and in trying to prevent getting caught, he somehow stumbles upon these great truths of life. A devotee now is thinking, is the world transitory? The fisherman renounced the world, but what about those who continue to live in the world? Now, this is a question M is trying to ask, and M is trying to think loudly. He says, if the world is transitory, and like this parable, in this parable, the fisherman has renounced the world, and is the world transitory? This devotee feels, oh, in that case, in that parable, definitely he felt the world was transitory. He felt, in the sense, the seeing the respect one gets, even if one is faking that is a real sadhu. So if I really consider this world to be transitory, how much joy and how much glory I will get. But this devotee now is thinking, if the world is really transitory, like the fisherman of this parable thinks, but what about us? We can't leave the household and we continue to live in this world. What will happen? Must we also renounce it? So this question naturally arises. If so much of glory, so much of praise is being done, or so much of uh, people glorify this kind of life, then what about us? Sri Krishna, the ocean of motiveless grace, immediately says to him, if a clerk is sent to jail, he has to finish his term there. But when he is released, does he begin to dance joyfully in the street to the beat of the drum? He again finds the job of a clerk and takes up his old profession. By the grace of the Guru, having acquired Jnana, one can continue to live in the household as a Jivan Mukta. So changing in profession is not the solution. So Sri Krishna very graciously points out, and here also he gives a wonderful example. He says, suppose by some chance a clerk is sent to a jail, somebody has done some mistake. So when he finishes his term, will he come after he is released? Will he just keep on jumping for joy? No, he has to earn a living. So he will take up his old profession. So even if the Guru's grace is there and one acquires Jnana, one continues to live in the household as a Jivan Mukta. Saying so, Sri Krishna grants fearlessness to householders. So this is an example of how Sri Krishna was so kind and considerate, and even encouraged even those who could not, for some reason, consider and say with conviction that the world is temporary or full of illusion, and hold on to God. So Sri Krishna now, still the conversation is going on. He's talking with Manilal, Malik and others, and he's saying, talking about God without form. This is God with form, but now he's talking of God without form. Manilal says to Sri Krishna, at what place should I meditate during my daily worship? That means he was asking, where should I meditate? In the head or in the heart or anything? Sri Krishna says, the heart is a well-known place. Meditate on God there. So, heart is the best place where one can meditate. Though there are other centers, people meditate between the eyebrows, people can meditate on the throat center. There are different centers. Tantras also speak of the different centers. But at the same time, all unanimously, the Upanishads also, everybody prefers the heart as a center where meditation becomes very effective. Now, faith is all important. This is the new heading. Haldari believes in formless God. Shambhu's belief. Manilal, a Brahmo devotee, believes in the formless God. Addressing him, Thakur says, Kabir used to say that God with form was his mother and the formless God is father. This is a nice way of explaining. that if you consider the God with form, then you establish a relationship with him as somebody who is alive, like is a human being and has descended on this earth to help you in your spiritual progress. It's just like the relationship a child has with the mother. And the father is the formless God. So father is normally in every household. There are of course exceptions, but in most of the households, the mother is the one who is caring, loving, and does not mind the faults of the children, as the father is very strict. So formless God, or the formless aspect of God, one has to struggle a lot. That is what Sri Ramakrishna is hinting. And he added, whom to slight and whom to worship. Both sides of the scales are even. That means you need a father to protect you, to guide you, but at the same time you need a loving mother. So God with form and God without form. Sri Ramakrishna, giving the example of Kabir, says that Kabir used to say that God with form is my mother and God without form is like my father. So both are required. Haladhari used to live with God with form during the day and the formless God at night. That is why whichever bhava you adopt, you can succeed if you have the right kind of faith. Whether you believe in God with form or in the formless God, you must have sincere faith. Normally, they say, as soon as one gets up in the morning, it is okay or it is good also sometimes to meditate on God with form, because a whole day of work is in front of us. And a little bhakti sometimes can become emotional and one can be emotionally upset during the day. But if one is Advaitic in his vision, one tries to see sameness, then he can maintain a certain level of level-headedness. So morning is ideally, of course, that is not for everybody, but for most of the people, they find it to begin with an Advaitic text when they begin the day. And as the day turns into evening and then we come towards night, it is always better to worship God with form, like a loving mother or a loving father who is there to protect you, so that at night you sleep peacefully, knowing fully well that there is somebody to protect you. As Holy Mother said, whenever you are in trouble, remember that you have a mother. So Haladhari was about whom Sri Ramakrishna is referring to. He says he used to adopt both bhavas. There's nothing wrong, because the same God with form or the God without form has become the God with form for my sake. If that should be the attitude, a liberal attitude. Now, if that is kept in mind, then there will be no sectarianism, no quarrels, nothing. Then he is telling something about his earlier story. The first ecstasy, is the Lord the doer or is it coincidence? Two topics are there. What happened during his first ecstasy? He says Shambhu Malik used to come to his garden on foot from Bagbazar. Somebody said to him, "It is so far away, why don't you take a cab? Some misfortune could occur on the way." Shambhu blushed with anger and said, "What? I set out on my journey after repeating God's name. How can there be any unfortunate incident? By having faith in him, you can do anything. I used to say that I would believe only if I saw such and such a person. If such and such an accountant talked to me, at that time, whatever used to come to my mind would come to pass." So, Sri Ramakrishna here is giving an example that Shambhu Malik, who was a known devotee of Thakur, used to come to his garden, that is the garden of Dakshineshwar, on foot by Bagh Bazaar. So, in those days, it was a bit risky to walk on foot. It was not so convenient sometimes. So he says, "Why don't you come safely in a cab?" Shambhu Malik was a very rich person. So some misfortune can occur on the way. But Shambhu was so full of faith in the divine that he said, "I have started my journey taking the name," as many people start the name of the journey in the name of Durga. They say Durga prevents any kind of mishap. So He says, I have taken God's name, then how can there be any accident or unfortunate incident? By having faith. So Sri Ramakrishna is quoting what Shambhu said and says, by having faith in him, you can do anything. So sometimes I would say that I would believe only if I saw such and such person. Sri Ramakrishna used to give impossible conditions. He used to go and tell mother, if what I saw, he was very childlike in his approach to sadhana. He said, if what I saw, the visions I saw, sometimes he used to get doubts, as very often we also get doubts when we are practicing spirituality. He used to get doubts and used to go and cry to the mother and said, if what, or sometimes some people used to try to disturb his faith by saying, oh, no, these are all hallucinations and all those things. So he used to go and say, tell mother, if what I said is what I see or what I perceive is true, then such and such person, any strange person which came to his mind, he used to say that if such and such a person comes today, or maybe a big accountant comes to Dakshineshwar, then I'll believe what I saw is true. And it would actually come to pass that whatever had come in his mind, mother is to fulfill it and indicate to him. That's the way he wanted proof, and he had his way. Now M had studied logic, so he found it little difficult to accept. He said M had studied logic. He is writing himself, M. He had read that it is actually coincidence that morning dreams actually tally with actual events, that in fact it was just a superstition. He had read this from a chapter on fallacies. There are fallacies. He had studied Western logic, where he says, what are the different fallacies that one encounters? Somebody sees something in the morning dream and it tallies with the events. The tallies with the dream. The events tally with the dream which one had. And then these coincidences people put together and say morning dreams are always true. So logic does not accept that. Western logic said it would not. It's not always necessary that all the morning dreams are true. If all the dreams are not true, then we cannot take it as a rule. So M says, well, did it ever happen that the actual event did not tally with what you thought? Now, this is from general experience, from the logic he has studied, and the ordinary experiences people, ordinary people, M is giving his judgment. But still, he wanted to know if there was any time when Sri Ramakrishna thought about these things and the things did not tally with what he thought. Did it happen? Then Sri Ramakrishna answers. He says, no, it always tallied. I would repeat his name, that is Lord's name, and whatever I believe would come to pass. And then he says, tells Manilal, but do you know the fact? Unless you are guileless and generous, you cannot have sincere faith. These are the two conditions. That is why Sri Ramakrishna praised Niranjananandaji, because he was guileless, he was straightforward. He could not do things, different things, tell one thing and do another thing. That is the way of the world. But most of the spiritual people, if they are really spiritual, are like children. They are not only guileless, but they are also generous. They forgive everybody, they forgive all faults. And Sri Ramakrishna says it would happen like this. Maybe in your case or other cases, you don't see it happen, that whatever you think will come to pass. And if he used to repeat the name of the Lord or say such and such person should come, if what I saw is true, then that person would come. So this event, though it may be very rare with other worldly people, Sri Ramakrishna says, in my case it was true, but do you know the fact? Unless you are guileless and generous, these are the two essential conditions, one cannot have sincere faith. And then he speaks something about the physical traits. It's very difficult to understand some of the characteristics by looking at the physical characteristic of a person, his eyes, his ear, his neck bones and all those things. People with such physical traits, as a neck bone that is too prominent, hollow or squint eyes do not easily acquire faith. So whenever somebody came to take initiation or maybe to get some kind of guidance, Thakur used to very minutely observe the physical traits. That if the neck bone is prominent, if somebody has hollow or squint eyes, such people he used to see that they don't normally, very easily they can't acquire faith. Of course, there are exceptions. It's not that all people with squint will be faithless people. So it is a misfortune to meet bad omens such as a banana tree in the south, the pui sak means it's a kind of green in the north, and a black tomcat passing in front of you. So all laugh. And Sri Ramakrishna adds a few superstitions which were prevailing at that time. He says these things are also many people believe. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna discussed on that day, and then there we change the topic, but we will discuss it in some other class. It is dusk, the maid servant comes and burns incense in the room. Manilal has left, but there are 1 or 2 people still in the room. Rakhal is also there, and everybody is in a very meditative state. So we end the conversation here, and we'll see if there are some questions I will answer. Otherwise, we will meet next time. Yeah. Sri Totapuri and Advaitin by Mother's grace experienced the state of Vijnana, seeing divinity in the immanent as well as in the transcendent. Could you please describe the journey of a sadhaka from the state of Ajnana to Jnana to Vijnana, and how a sadhaka can experience God in everything? Now, Totapuri had a knowledge of Advaita, that non-dual truth, but he still had to reach that state of Vijnana, which he did by the grace of his disciple Sri Ramakrishna. Though Sri Ramakrishna was his disciple, it was Sri Ramakrishna who showed him that the very same Brahman that you speak of is the Divine Mother. There is hardly any difference. And that realization he had due to some incidents which happened. So we'll not discuss about that, but it is true that the immanent as well as the transcendent are two sides of the same coin. So the journey of a sadhaka from Ajnana, first the Jnana comes, then he sees the all-pervading conscious. That is the first stage of sadhana. And then, as Sri Ramakrishna used to describe it so beautifully, that when you are ascending the stairs and want to reach the terrace, you see that the different materials, the stone, the lime, or maybe the cement, and all those things are used. When you reach the terrace, and then when you come down, even then when you reach the terrace, you find it is made of the same material as what you saw when you were ascending. The terrace or the goal is also made of the same material. So there is absolutely no difference, in the sense that once having attained that state, then he does not see duality. He first sees duality because of ignorance. Then he sees everything non-dual truth, the pure consciousness. But after that, if he is still alive or if survives that experience, then when he comes down, then he is no longer deluded. He experiences that the same truth which has manifested itself as the universe is the same truth as the Brahman of the universe. So Shakti and Shiva is Abhed. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Brahman and his Maya, they are not separate. As Avyakta Prakriti, she is one with Purusha. But when it starts manifesting, it appears for some time, or it appears for an unrealized person that they are separate entities. But for a Vijnani, both, it doesn't make any difference whether he sees Brahman or he sees Maya. Okay. So I'll take your leave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you,
Namaste,
Swamiji.
namaste.